Warm greetings from the High 10. It is Everyday Shenanigans. Thanks for joining me. This commentary is pertaining to Casey Anthony. Was she acting in the Netflix docuseries? What was the purpose of coming forward many years later to implicate her father, which he was implicated during the trial, brother as well? How do they feel about this docuseries? Will there ever be an amendment between she and her family after this docuseries? I possibly doubt it. There will be people who will be gullible enough to believe what she said during this docuseries because you have people like that. They root for the underdog, knowing they are lying. I'm going to read you something from the Decider, 2 articles. This one's kind of winded, but it's to give you a synopsis of what's going on. I'm not going to read all of it because it's a bit winded. I'll just try to bring you the top portion and the end portion pertaining to this docuseries. Basically, they're asking you, do you want to stream it or skip it? Casey Anthony, Where the Truth Lies on Peacock, where Casey Anthony attempts to tell her side of the story. This was uploaded November 30th. Where the Truth Lies is a 3-episode docuseries produced by Abby Hoyt, This Is Paris, among others, that for the first time gives Casey Anthony the opportunity to speak directly to viewers. In 2011, Anthony stood trial for the 2008 murder of her 3-year-old daughter, Kaylee, and was later found not guilty by a jury. There have been lots of other shows and movies documenting the case and Anthony, including 2017's Casey Anthony, an American murder mystery, but this time it is Anthony who has control of the narrative and her story. Content warning for mentions of abuse and rape. The gist. The first episode begins with Casey Anthony entering the home that the crew has rented in South Florida for the interviews to take place in. Anthony shows off the last few items she has left of Kaylee, which include various photographs and some drawings. Then lots of archival news footage clips from 2008 and 2011 are shown, just opposing Anthony as an individual to the media scrutiny and publicity she received 14 years ago. The phrase, she has not done a single on-camera interview since she was acquitted in her murder trial, particularly stands out as it attempts to add significance to why this docuseries matters. Anthony herself also explains that she's done a lot of work over the last 10 years making sure I knew who I was, which makes her capable and able to speak up now finally. We also get to see Casey in motion, taking a hike and working as a research analyst for Patrick McKenna, the lead investigator for her 2011 case, before she then briefly talks about how Kaylee was born and what it meant for her to be a mom. Then it goes on from there, giving you bits and pieces of what the docuseries is about and her explaining herself. I'm going to cut to the end. If this article is recommending this for you to watch. It says, our take. While Anthony attempts to tell us the truth, the narrative and the structure of the show feel confusing, and the pacing for certain parts feels really fast. When a news reporter or friend will give their take on the case, it feels rushed and without clear reason. The producers seem to be trying to justify why this docuseries is necessary with different professionals, but as soon as they share their 2 cents, the show rushes off. The editing feels quick, and as a result, the viewer may have trouble finding a way to latch on to what is being said. The first episode keeps asking for the truth, but spends more time separating Casey and the detectives' truths than trying to show them as within the same vein. And instead of giving us more of an idea of who Kaylee is and why she mattered, it only gives us a few details. So while the case surrounds Kaylee and Anthony as her mother, it doesn't allow us to see them as interlocked and related, and that defeats some of the heart and purpose of the show's significance. Our call. Skip it. Though it attempts to shine a light on someone whose narrative was taken away from them, Casey Anthony, Where the Truth Lies, doesn't add much to the case, nor does it keep you wanting to learn more. In a world of true crime, docuseries, and drama series, it feels hard to listen to Anthony with the mounds of evidence against her that made it difficult to believe her even now. That is from the Decider. I'm going to bring you something else from the Decider pertaining to Joy Behar. She has given her commentary also pertaining to this docuseries. This was uploaded the 1st. Plenty of people won't be tuning into Peacock's new Casey Anthony documentary for their own reasons, but Joy Behar says she's skipping out on the true crime series over some professional beef from years ago. Behar revealed on today's episode of The View that she's boycotting Casey Anthony Where the Truth Lies because she blames Anthony for the cancellation of her talk show. During a discussion about the ethics of the docuseries, which comes over a decade after Anthony was found not guilty in the murder of her 2-year-old daughter, Kaylee Behar took a trip down memory lane, reminding her co-hosts that while the country was glued to their TV screens watching the trial, she was hosting a very good talk show that met an untimely demise. I have no interest in Anthony, but years ago I had a show on HLN, and it was a really good show because I interviewed all sorts of people, Diane Keaton, Catherine Deneuve, and Bill Murray, and it was a wonderful show, Behar said. Her show, Say Anything, aired on HLN in 2009 and ran for 2 seasons on the network before switching to Current TV for its 3rd and final season. Behar mourned the end of her show, which was axed at HLN in 2011, the same year as Anthony's trial. Casey Anthony became the focal point of that network, and that was the end of my show, Behar told The View, adding, for some reason, crime and a story like this really grabs people's attention. It does not grab my attention. I can't stand her either. Let's see. Okay. Whoopi Goldberg pointed out that Behar had been on the same network as Nancy Grace, who hosted a Tiller news show on the network for years and heavily covered Anthony's 2011 trial. Behar replied, I was. That's what happened. And I could not stand to talk about her. After blasting Anthony as a little liar, Behar doubled down, raising her eyebrows and repeatedly, plainly, she's a liar. Well, I guess you would feel some type of way. Everyone has goals, dreams. You have an opportunity to have your own show. And then it's axed because the focus is pertaining to a national true crime story, in which that was a very prevalent story at that time when Casey Anthony went on trial. And I did watch it. I believe I watched it most of the days that it ran up until her not guilty verdict. So what we have to ask ourselves is why? Why now? Why speak? Why continue the lies? You've been able to walk free. 12 members of a jury that obviously had been drinking a lot of salt water concurred together to let you go free. So why not just live your life and keep quiet? Why ruffle the feathers of a very dire situation of murdering a child, your own child, blaming your father, brother, accusing them of sexual abuse, to only just bring up more, what is the word? Bad vibes. Lies, basically lies. I can't imagine her father ever forgiving her. It would seem very hard to forgive a child that would accuse you of child abuse. One second, you guys. One second. Only when I get ready to do something. As I was saying, it would be very hard to forgive a person that has accused you of sexual assault and then murdering a child and or covering up the death of a child, making up a wild story. That is what you will hear in that docuseries. That's what you heard during court when she attended court. It's a very sick situation. The mother, I believe, never wanted to believe that she did these things to the child, hurt the child, because you can see the difference of opinion over the years between her mother and her father, it was so obvious that they were on different pages pertaining to Casey Anthony. I do not know if they now are having any type of dealings with her, but you could see how they were not in sync. I watched the interview with them a few years back. I believe it was on A&E, if I'm not mistaken. And you could see the contempt in George. And you could see how he was bickering with his wife on a live interview. And it was sad. Very, very sad. And I said, this relationship is dust, all because of one lying daughter. But lying starts young. Either starts in childhood or teenage years. And I think most people who have dealt with pathological liars can tell you that the lying starts very early. And I had a friend in high school who lied a lot. He was a Caucasian male, a very feminine young boy, and he lied a lot. He rarely ever told the truth about anything. So what I had to ask myself over the years, when we parted our separate ways, went our separate ways in life, I always wondered if he still was a liar. And I think it would be very hard to stop. Because when you start lying in high school, let's say if it even started then, what is to make you stop? You're almost an adult, 16, 17 years old lying. So why would you stop at the age of 22, 24? This is something I want you to think about. What makes a liar? Because 9 times out of 10, the fact that she could lie and cover up the death of her child, make up that wild story about working at the amusement park, knowing she didn't work there, actually had those detectives drive her there, walk down a hallway knowing she no longer worked there, shows you how diabolical Casey Anthony is. And she was of a willful age to know better, to not lie nor kill a kid. I won't doubt she's the same person, because the fact that she's done this docuseries, she's still lying. So that means she has not changed. I'm going to play you information from Court TV. Analysts are going to break down her body language in that docuseries. I will also play you information from HLN pertaining to, is she acting during this docuseries? And also, I'll play you another audio from Court TV asking about the comparisons between Casey Anthony and Leilani Simon. Are they similar in their dispositions? Did Leilani Simon copycat Casey Anthony, or another female mother / baby killer? Thank you for joining me. If you'd like to donate to this great network, $BeGanchi, 129 Cash App. All stickers and chats are welcome during this live stream. Thank you for following the content. Welcome new subscribers and viewers. This is a breakdown of the docuseries now airing on Netflix pertaining to Casey Anthony. One second. Thank you all. Very interesting information. Please go to my community board for all audio played in this live stream. Court TV is the source of this information.
Here on Closing Arguments, and I'll apologize off the top if I look a little tired, if I look a little sick. It's because after the show last night, I went home and I went on my cell phone and I joined the Peacock streaming service. I paid the money.
Oh, Peacock, I'm sorry. I said Netflix. I'm sorry. Sorry about that.
For 3 hours. For 3 hours. And let me go through my little take on what I experienced during, I guess it's more than 3 hours, 3 episodes, during this all-night journey last night. First of all, The way I would describe this docuseries is ridiculously bizarre, because it starts as almost a love story between a woman accused of murdering her child and her defense team. Although part of this love story, and it's not a romantic love story, I mean a love story like, this is my family now, and they have done all of this for me, and we are joined forever, with the music playing in the background. And it's bizarre, because beneath all of that, and the entire premise of this show, is that she tells us in the docuseries what really happened for the first time. Something that she didn't even tell to her own defense team. I mean, she's facing the death penalty. If she loses the trial, she goes to death row. That's where prosecutors want to put her. Her new story, she's like 100% innocent, and she knows exactly who is responsible, yet, for some unbeknownst reason, she doesn't tell anybody. Like her lawyers, her investigators, her mitigation specialist. Like, why would you not, if you're 100% innocent, tell the people defending you in your death penalty trial what really happened? Why would you wait till 11 years after the trial and tell it to some producer for Peacock? But that's what happened. With that said, what she said in this docuseries is that her attorney, Jose Baez, got it wrong. I'll never forget his opening statement. I mean, it changed that trial, turned it on its head. It was powerful, it was effective, but it was very specific about what happened the day that Kaylee died. She drowned in the pool. George retrieved her, screaming at Casey Anthony, "Look at what you did! Your mother will never forgive you." That's not what she says in the docuseries. That's not what she said. Her story contradicts that. It's unbelievable. Like, that's what Jose Baez told the jury. And why did he tell the jury? Did he just make it up out of thin air? Or did someone tell him, like maybe his client?
Exactly.
What is going on? Like I said, bizarre. Absolutely bizarre. So, what happens in this docuseries after she does all this and tells her story? It turns into the prosecution of George Anthony. By the time you get to the third episode, it's just allegation. He's a pedophile. He molested Kaylee. He killed Kaylee. He's the murderer. That's the big conclusion here. But she never told anybody before the docuseries. As a matter of fact, we get to see the moment where it's all revealed with her investigator who, has taken her under his wing and has helped her in her post not guilty life. But like for the first, you don't tell him why you're facing the death penalty, what happened here? And by the way, I'm a former prosecutor, as you know. If you presented the so-called evidence that George Anthony was a killer to a grand jury, you wouldn't even get an indictment. It'd be laughable. The only evidence you would have would be the words of Casey Anthony. Imagine hanging your hat on that. That's all it is. That's all it is. It's unreal. So, as I'm watching this, I'm wondering, how many more lies did I just experience in this all-night binge? How many more lies? Now, I'm not trained in this, right? I have to base it on other things, but I kind of have a way where I can decipher when Casey Anthony is lying. And I've deduced that it's usually when her lips are moving.
Exactly.
You see her lips moving. She's very likely lying about something. It was unreal. I'm not trained in all this, but tonight I've got the experts who can talk all about body language, what what you actually see and hear when someone is speaking, what they're really saying. Let me introduce them. In Orlando, Florida, of course, in Orlando, Florida, jury consultant, human behavior expert, Susan Constantine, who was with me years ago down there when all of this was happening. Great to see you. In Loveland, Colorado, statement analysis expert, Lieutenant Robert Schaefer. Great to see you. And in Bradenton, Florida, voice stress analysis expert, Jerry Crotty. Great to have everyone here. So what we're going to do together is take a look at a little piece of what I experienced last night, and then have everyone give us a little bit of analysis of what you're seeing, what you're hearing. And I know you all watched the entire thing like I did, so you can take your comments beyond that. But let's start with this. In this three-part series, Casey Anthony says she went to sleep with her daughter next to her, then being awoken by her father asking her where Kaylee was. Casey says she searched the house and the yard before seeing her father holding Kaylee in his arms.
I can see him standing there with her in his arms. They hand her to me and telling me that it's my fault, that I did that I caused that. And I just collapsed with her in my arms. She was heavy. She was cold. Recordings just got better.
Ooh. Sorry about that. Intermission.
She was cold. As I'm sitting there with her on my lap, just hysterical. Just staring at her, not knowing what to do. He takes her from me and he immediately softens his tone and tells me it's going to be okay. That she was going to be okay. That's what he said to me. And I don't know how long I sat outside. I don't know where he went. He took her from me and he walked away.
And she continues to talk about, for folks who haven't seen it yet, that she believed Kaylee was alive. And during those 31 days that we've always talked about, her and her dad were meeting up and he was telling her what to do, what to say, how to act, all of that. Unreal. All right, let's get some analysis and reaction. Susan Constantine, go ahead.
Yeah, so the first thing I noticed is, and this has been very consistent throughout all three of those documentaries, is that there's this enormous amount of anger, scorn, contempt. Disgust was the big one. You know, when you see the nose scrunching up like this, that triad of emotion is often linked with deception. So when we see this, when she's talking about our daughter, she's got this disgust. I want to share something with you. When you and I were in that courtroom that day, right? We listened to the entire trial. But when she was talking about when the human decomposition, when they opened up the trunk and that there was this odor of human decomposition, right then, Casey Anthony showed disgust. So she's doing the same thing here again. So when she reenacted that moment, when she could actually remember what that odor smelled like, she saw the disgust. This disgust is more about her anger, her hostility that is vented towards her father. That's where that is coming from. And she's doing that because that's what fuels her annoyance. So it's a form of status, and she's trying to position herself. So the more she tries to position her status and try to appear truthful, she then ups her game, and that anger, disgust, and contempt, and that triad is always considered deceptive.
There was a ton of anger that I was feeling. Lieutenant Robert Schaefer, your thoughts?
Well, as I looked at that, by the way, it's good to see you. Hey, as I looked at that clip, one thing really stands out to me. What I do is look at language. The story somebody has to tell and the way they put that story together tell me whether a truthful thought process, deceptive. And that portion of her story is told with a focus on emotion. she doesn't give a factual account. There's facts involved, but her goal there is to convey emotion, which is kind of related to what Susan was saying. And when a person recalls from memory, and that would be a truthful statement, that's not necessarily what they do. They want people to understand what happened. She's more concerned about conveying emotion, how she felt, how she was made to feel, rather than the facts of what actually happened. So that would be symptomatic of a suspicion of deception.
Jerry Crotty, your thoughts?
Well, I get to analyze what she says through a computer program. And what I'm looking for is that conflict in the brain. When people are being truthful, there is no real conflict. It just comes out very smoothly, and it's spontaneous and everything else. And so when I analyze a lot of her statements, as you will see, that you will see this conflict on her through most of her testimony that she gave during her documentary. And, it's just fascinating to watch, just like you said.
What do you mean by conflict? Explain that just a little bit.
Okay, so you have two sides of the brain. I'll just kind of make it easy. You have two sides of the brain. You got one side of the brain that's, let's just call it pure. It basically runs your heart, it runs your lungs, it does everything it's supposed to do, and it does it all automatically. Then you got the other side of the brain that's a little bit devious, and that's the side where deception comes from. And when a person decides to lie, there is this reaction in the brain. One side says do it, the other side says we're not doing this today. But unfortunately, you can push it through. And what ends up happening is that stress, that reaction, that conflict that occurs in the brain, it goes out throughout the body. And that's what everybody's looking at here. I get to see it through the voice, and Susan gets to see it in the body, and Bob gets to see it through their language, what they're saying. And so it's really important the way that we do these things. And this is very fascinating to me, what she said.
Now, Susan, one thing that I noticed just looking at, there was a lot of stuff going on in her face. And I noticed a lot of times she would finish saying something and kind of do a little thing, a little lip. I would see that a lot. It would be like at the end of a thought or something, and then it would stop, and then the camera would stay on her for a second, and it started jumping out at me. The other thing is this furrowed little brow in the middle here. Like sometimes it was like deeper than the Grand Canyon in there. What do those things mean? What do they mean, if anything? You see it sort of in the first two here, but I saw it even deeper.
Yeah, so anytime you see an asymmetrical movement, especially with the mouth, that's associated with contempt. But what she does is it's more like almost uncertainty. It's almost where she bites the side of her mouth. It happens right after a statement. So when she says something and then she can hold it for a certain amount of time, then the duping delight pops out. You see the side movement, the asymmetrical movement, which is doubting the words that she says. So she doesn't believe it, but she's trying to pull it off. Right, so that cognitive load, it's building up, and then it releases right at the very end. And that's also what you see in the furrowed eyebrows. Furrowed eyebrows are when somebody's under a lot of tension, right? They're angry and they're tension, and their eyebrows are coming down, right? So when you're upset about something, you're sad, which is what I would expect to see, her eyebrows would turn up, but it furrows in. So she's constantly in this state of anger and contempt, this triad of emotions, which is fueled by her inter-hostility. So that side contempt is partly is a more of a complex emotion. So it's contempt, moral superiority, but it's also self-doubt. And she's trying to convince rather than convey, and it actually comes out in droopy delight on the side of her face.
Lieutenant Robert Schaefer, I want you to take a listen. This is Jose Baez, that opening statement that I referenced. Here's a piece of it. Because to me it was significant, because this was the game changer in the trial. It was powerful. It turned everything on its head. Let's listen to it one more time.
How in the world can a mother wait 30 days before ever reporting her child missing? It's insane. It's bizarre. Something's just not right about that. Well, the answer is actually relatively simple. She never was missing. Kaylee Anthony died on June 16, 2008, when she drowned in her family's swimming pool. You're going to hear that Kaylee loved to swim, and Kaylee could get out of the house very easily, and it escalated.
A couple of things pretty amazing in that clip, because in the docuseries, she says she had no idea what he was going to say, and she didn't know that he was going to get into everything that he did. But Lieutenant, let me ask you, here, Jose Baez, very specific in what happened. That story has changed. I know as a lawyer, you cannot just say whatever you want. Your opening statement has to be based upon something. The only person who could tell him what happened would be Casey Anthony.
Exactly.
How do you account for the statement seemingly changing from what her attorney said to what she said?
Well, I think that in my impression, based on the way he states things, that he probably wasn't sure right up to the last minute, or at least right the final hour, exactly what that's going to be. And so what I understand about some other things that I've seen, that she was not clear with him exactly what that was going to be, and that was kind of a final decision that they just had to run with. I think they felt that they could build a good enough case with that, with the information that they had. But he absolutely depends on her to decide what that defense is going to be. And I noticed that one thing about that is that he stated that he described her in the third person. He says, what would cause a mother to do this? And although she's just, as though she's not really a person, it wasn't specific to her. So what would cause a mother to wait 30 days? So he wasn't specific to Casey. And so there's, that's what we call lack of commitment.
That's fascinating.
Talking about somebody in the third person is a lack of commitment.
Absolutely.
That shows that she doesn't even really believe, you want to put it that way, what she had to say.
Unbelievable. All right, Susan, Constantine, Lieutenant Robert Schaefer, Jerry Crotty staying with us. We've got more analysis, especially when we get to the accusations against George Anthony. That is next. But first, coming up, next hour.
All right, intermission. Very interesting information. Naturally, whatever she told Baez, that's why he said what he said in court. I doubt he just made up all these versions about a child drowning in a pool asked to get his client off. I think he did whatever it took to get the client off, but I believe those versions came from her as far as the sexual abuse of the dad, the brother against her, and also the father against the child. That's Casey Anthony's doing. So that's why I don't know why she's got this cooked up version now that the baby drowned. He took the baby and dumped the baby. Well, why didn't you call the police? Why didn't you discuss where the baby was? This is bullshit. Everybody knows this. One second. For those who haven't heard, the rapper Takeoff, his killer has been arrested. I will bring more commentary to that story once I do my research. But just letting you all know, the killer has been apprehended 1 month and 1 day to the date. Thank you for joining me. All right, we're back.
Casey has a brother, and he too wanted to follow in his father's footsteps. And on certain occasions when he was a teenager, he attempted to also touch his sister. And some of this behavior, you'll realize that the apple doesn't fall very far from the tree. We are what we are because of who brought us into this world and how we were raised. Casey was raised to lie.
Wow.
Casey Anthony's attorney, Jose Baez, told the jury his client was molested by her father and her brother as a child. And now, 11 years after she was found not guilty of murdering her daughter, Casey addressed the same accusations in the Peacock docuseries Casey Anthony, Where the Truth Lies.
When I was 8 years old, my father started to come into my room at night. was physically hurt. Scared because I was physically hurt and I can't tell mommy what happened. She'll get mad at me. That's what I was told. With my father, the abuse one day just stopped, just before my 12th birthday. My brother started coming in shortly after I turned 12. And it stopped around the time I turned 15.
Wow. Do you believe that?
Same thing that happened with my father. My brother never raped me. No, absolutely not. But it was close enough.
Do you believe these allegations against George and the brother? She almost seems convincing here, besides this other BS she has spun. What if that is the truth? I'm going to go out on a limb on this one. What if indeed she was molested by a brother and a father, and this spawned this demon to become a baby killer? What is the truth? Or is she just a pathological liar, say anything to get empathy, and it worked for 12 members of a jury? Got to come up with something to say to get out of this mess I'm in. I'm in this jail. I want out of here. I want to be free. Got to do something. I've got to say something. And what I always tell myself is if a person can lie about the death of a person, which was her child, put in other people that never existed, such as the nanny, Zanny. Anybody can see right through that. Nursery rhymes. Zanny the nanny. Come on, you guys. Why would I think you would be telling the truth about being sexually assaulted by family members, your father and brother particularly? I do believe she has always been a liar. And what you have to always remember about a liar, you do not know when they're telling the truth. And when they are telling the truth, nobody's going to believe them. But sadly, unfortunately for a little girl, a 3-year-old, 12 members of a Florida jury believed the lies of Casey Anthony. And that's the sick part of the story besides the death of the little girl. The evidence against this woman, because my thing is, prove that George killed her, prove that he dumped the body after drowning, prove the mother didn't have anything to do with it, your brother, prove they didn't have anything to do with it. And why did you not have anybody searching for a killer? Was that ever mentioned in this docuseries? I didn't watch it. But I'd like to know that. Let's resume this commentary with Vinnie Politan. Thank you so much for joining me.
But it was close enough. Close enough where there was a pattern. But you did tell your mom about Lee. I did not.
Now, she also makes one more accusation of rape in the docuseries, and that is by Kaylee's father. The story is she went to a party, someone slipped her something, knocked out, no memory at all. I don't even think she knows who the father was.
Wow.
According to what she said in the docuseries. So she's raped by her father, molested by her brother, and then raped by the father of Kaylee Marie, who is someone who, to this day, we still don't know who it is. Okay, let me bring back in my experts. Susan Constantine, human behavior expert, jury consultant. Lieutenant Robert Schaefer, statement analysis expert. Jerry Crotty, voice stress analyst expert. We just heard her there accuse her brother and her father. Jerry, I'll start with you. Do you hear that same conflict during this part of her statements?
Yes, I was able to run this through the computer to see what came up and to kind of give you an idea what these things look like. If there's no stress associated with the word, it looks like this Christmas tree over my shoulder here. It's just a pointy top, looks just like a Christmas tree. If it looks anything other than a Christmas tree, that's when we start to kind of pay attention to it. This statement that she made was not very many Christmas trees. There was a lot of stress associated with it. And I want to say that this is a different type of stress. This isn't from, recalling incidents or anything like that. I have examined multiple individuals, probably close to 1,000 individuals. And if they have nothing to worry about what they're saying, that information should flow freely from the individual. There should be no stress created from it. And so, yes, I did see some rather interesting output on that one.
Susan, your thoughts about what we just saw?
Well, one of the things that stood out to me was there was no eye movement. You know, when we think about Clinton, when he was accusing Monica Lewinsky, her eyes never moved. You would expect for her to, when she's recalling something, your eyes are going to shift. It's going to go back into memory and replay the tape. And Jerry really talks to that really well in our training class. But that was one of the major things that I saw. Again, anger. So you would have expected her to feel shameful, embarrassed, but her eyes were very fixated. There was no rapid eye blinking, which you should have seen.
Of all analogies.
That was a very stressful situation. That would have been more consistent than the staring eyes.
All right, we're out of time for tonight, but I just want to go around the horn one time really quickly. At the end of the day, after watching everything and analyzing it, 0 to 10, 10 being the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, 0 being nothing but lies, what's your number, Susan?
80% of it is lies, 20% truth.
What's the truth? What's the 20%?
Yeah, I would have said 70-30.
70-30?
Wow.
Jerry?
I'm going to give you one better than that. I was waiting for her pants to burst into flames. So that's very much it.
Oh my gosh. No.
So much.
Not burst into flames.
Your insight, your expertise. Great job, everyone. Thank you so much.
Vinny Politan and his guests. Core TV is the source if you need verification for the information. Wow, that was the best answer in the house. Pants burst into flames. Ain't that the truth? Everybody would burn up on set. Let's talk about this quickly. I have 2 more audios to play pertaining to this information. Why did these people seek out her, if indeed that is how it went? What was the purpose, Miss Producer? Well, why did you want to talk about this? Why did you want to do this? For views, kind of like YouTube. Views, likes, make a little money. I mean, a lot of people had a lot of negative things to say about this documentary, even before they watched it, because most Americans, I would think, a high population of people, believe she's guilty. We just don't understand the 12 members from Florida. We don't know if it's the salt water down there. It got contaminated in your fountain, through your sink. What the hell was going on? You bought contaminated bottled water. What the hell was going on with you guys? Because to get 12 members, that's a lot of people to sway. It's a lot of people to sway. Once again, the motive for reaching out to Miss Anthony. What is her parents' take on this? Will they respond to the documentary? As I told you before, I do not think this couple was doing and faring well a few years back. I don't know if things have changed, but when you deal with traumatic situations, it can affect your relationships. And a lot of people have broken up due to death, due to murder, because it weighs on people, especially people who have lost children. The relationship sinks drastically. The fact that she has a lot of movement in her mouth, she gets very angry in spinning the story. Why are you angry? This is your chance to allegedly tell the truth. So what are you angry about? You can see that in some of the clips of the videos where she's spinning the web about what happened this fateful day, and the daughter allegedly drowned and George brought her carrying the baby, which I do not believe any of it because it makes no sense. Mr. McKenna helped her after this trial. Did she have a sexual relationship with him? I'm wondering. What was the even swap for helping her? Because anybody knows she wouldn't have a normal life after killing a kid. Who's going to hire her? Who's going to want to have her work for them? Trust her in their business, drawing negative attention? It is a wonder that she has not been hurt and harmed. But you see, there are people who will not hurt the baby killers and let them go on about their business. She is also dated. She had a row with a woman in a bar pertaining to a man not too long ago. That made national news. Trouble will find you when you are a troublemaker. Let's say that. Abuse allegations. You hear her talk about the father allegedly touching her, didn't go all the way to penetration. I think she knew not to say that because she knew she's already lying. So if I say he went all the way, oh my goodness. I may never mend a relationship with my father if I say he fully penetrated me. She knows exactly what she's doing. She spins a nice little web. He did it to her from what, 8 to 12. Then the brother steps in 12 to 15 to take over where the father left off, as if the father had been talking to the son. Here you go, son. You take the ranks. I need you now to take over in essaying your sister. Very clever. Very, very clever. How does the brother feel about those allegations made in court and now this Peacock docuseries? Will any of the family members come out to respond to the nasty allegations against them? My theory is if you lie about one thing, you'll lie about anything. And I believe that is who Casey Anthony is. She's a pathological liar. She's a narcissist and she's a grand sociopath. She is somebody I would not trust. I wouldn't trust her with a child. I wouldn't trust her with a dog. I wouldn't trust her with a goldfish. I wouldn't trust her with a purse left in a room alone with her. I would not trust her. And I do believe there was some theft involved as well during that time of somebody's checkbook. So that goes to show you there was a pattern to the madness. And naturally, a thief does not always make a murderer. A liar does not always make a murderer, but they all tend to go hand in hand when you find the murderer. So where is the murderer of baby Kaylee, who would now be about 17? I was thinking about that earlier. She'd be a teenager now had she lived. I do believe the grandparents were decent enough parents that could have helped raise the child. So why didn't Casey just ask them to raise the child and go out and do what she wanted to do? Because basically she was doing that anyway. George and the wife were basically raising the little girl, so I don't understand why she would kill her. But see, I knew why she killed the kid. She didn't want to be responsible, so she knew that if I get rid of the kid, I can live with mommy and daddy forever and not have to worry about contending with a kid, being responsible for a kid in his house, pretending to care for this kid. So I'll knock off the kid, still stay with my parents, and I don't have to pretend to care for this kid. Because remember, think about this carefully. So long as the child is alive, living in the house with all of them, she has to pretend to care. I peeped that day one when this story broke, when they went to trial. I said that's why she killed the kid. She checked out. She wanted her freedom, but she wanted to continue living with the parents for free. But she didn't want the burden of dealing with the kid also in the parents' house. That's my assessment of Casey Anthony. Why not ask where the child was in this version? Why not ask daddy, where are you taking my baby? Why didn't you ask when you were sitting there watching your wet child? Stiff child, where are you going with her? Hey, I'm going to call the police. Give me my baby back. It's all bullshit. Because that's what was said in the beginning of this live when I read you that article from the Decider. Everything is short. The answers you're looking for are cut off. They're cut off because she doesn't have a fucking explanation. Come on now. Everybody knows when things are rushed, conversation is rushed. I think we all know this when we talk to people. Or they're asking us questions and we really don't want to answer. What do? We jump off the subject. Well, how was your day today? Oh, I think I'm going to go to the mall today. You don't want to talk. And that is your prerogative. So that was said in the Decider that the commentary was rushed. No definite answer to the questions. That's because she was lying. She didn't want to continue to go into more explaining. So let's pretend all this happened as Casey said it did. Well, why wouldn't the father tell the mother, the baby drowned, baby wasn't watched, got out of the gate, drowned. I took the baby and threw the baby off into the Forest or whatever down the street. This is crazy to me. The mom wouldn't say, now, George, you know that's wrong. Don't bury that baby. This is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And it's not to say that people don't cover up deaths of people, but you know this is asinine. The way they doted on that child, I do believe the mother had nothing to do with the crime, nor George. The mother is the one that called the police after smelling the trunk when Casey finally came home, or when they found the car. So, therefore, I doubt they had anything to do with the death of the child and any knowledge of a drowning or murder of a baby. And why would the mother call a month or so later and she knew what happened to the child? She knew her husband dumped the kid. Makes no sense. These are all lies. And she didn't debunk the lies carefully in court with bias or in this documentary. Yet 12 members found her innocent. How has she been living past 14 or so years free? What does she have to say about this analysis? Will she care? Probably not, because she's a narcissist, she's a sociopath. She knows what people think of her, so it wouldn't matter what these people have to say, these analysts, pertaining to her body language and her statements. I found it strange when the person in this commentary said, Casey didn't know that Baez was going to get into his theory of what happened to the child during the trial. Well, what do you mean? She didn't think Baez was going to get into it. Well, how can he get into something without your help? You had to have told him the baby drowned. You're the one that gave all those cocked up theories that he played out in court, pretending to be molested, the baby drowned, blah, blah, blah. You made all that up. I don't believe Baez made all that up. He needed help, and you gave the rendering. You told him all that stuff. The interesting part about listening to all of this information many years later, watching the court trial, they show a clip on court TV. George and the wife are sitting in the back of the courtroom. That should tell you something right there. Most people who support the family members, they will sit at the front of the court. They will sit at the front of the court. They will sit behind the defense table. Why were her parents not sitting up close? In this one clip, they are way in the back, just stone cold, staring off into space. Just shocked, I guess, at this thing that they brought here. And the fact that she's sitting in the court, just staring off into space, as if she's just waiting on the B train to go to work, shows you she was empty inside. Morally and ethically guilty. A renowned scientist from the National Lab from Oak Ridge, Tennessee, that sits outside of Knoxville, is the one who conducted the smell test. And they debunked his theory, which was a disrespect to him and him being a scientist. Because the National Lab is a renowned laboratory here in the United States in Anderson County. And they do great work out there. And a lot of these scientists go to trials to perfect their craft. And I believe the test that was done, administered, because common sense will tell you, you know what food smells like. You know what bleach smells like. You don't have to see it to know that it was used in a room. You smell steak, you know somebody cooked a steak in the room. You do not have to see it on a plate. You don't have to see it on the stove. But you know it was cooked in that room. Checkmate. Decomposition detected in the trunk. I believe a dog even hit on the trunk. Cadaver dog. And for those that did not know, each dog is trained for a specific task. One is for searching a live person. One is for remains. The rest does not need explanation. What is understood never needs an explanation. She lied during the trial. She lied beforehand. And this is how you reel in a killer. Arrest them for the lies first. And then the murder charge next. That's what should have happened with Leilani Simon. We're going to talk about that next. After I play you some commentary, was she acting during this Peacock debacle? It amazes me how a person could walk around, one, and be a pathological liar. Two, knowingly kill their child and continue to spread the lies of other people's involvement. And anybody with sense would know if the child did drown in the pool and you were there, common sense would be to call 911. You will not allow anybody to come to you holding a dead kid and then walk away with the kid and you don't inquire where they're going. Who does that? And then go run off and party it up for a month and a half or so, oblivious to somebody walking off with your dead child. Just like Nancy Grace said many years ago when this went on, this trial. Everything she told checked out to be a lie pertaining to where she worked, Zanny the nanny, all the people were make-believe. She said, Nancy Grace said, the only thing that was told that was truthful were actual addresses. I thought that was so interesting. She says there were actual addresses. Those were not made up, but the people were made up. Don't you find that interesting? So there's no way you could believe anything she has said about George and the brother sexually assaulting her. There's no way. Because if you can lie about the death of a child, you can lie about anything. And she did lie about anything. And the fact that Baez used those two men as bait in the court, they also threw salt on the man who discovered the child, a utility worker. It showed me Baez, to me, was just as diabolical as she was, because he used anybody to put the blame on. And you had no proof that that man ever been to that house, the utility worker. You had no proof that a brother did anything with a child as far as death, murder, discardment of a body, or George, or the mother. And naturally, what proof are you going to bring forward as far as SA from a brother and a father? And I do believe she is the reason those parents were broke down as a couple. She's diabolical. Let's get to my next commentary pertaining to this Peacock docuseries. Thank you for joining me. Lord have mercy. What a mess. Please check out The Queen in Dolly Parton's new movie. I have an extra role. I'm in the opening scenes of this Christmas movie that aired last night. Well, it'll be Thursday night because it's now a new day. Mountain Magic Christmas, starring Dolly Parton, Willie Nelson on NBC. The Queen is an extra in this movie. Please check it out. Thank you all for your support. All right, let's play our next commentary pertaining to this heathen. Was she acting? HLN is the source. This was uploaded 3 days ago. You need verification.
Casey Anthony is speaking out more than a decade after she was found not guilty in the murder of her daughter, Kaylee. The case took the nation by storm when the 2-year-old went missing back in 2008. Her remains were found later that year. In a new docuseries on Peacock that came out just this morning, the woman who came to be known as Top Mom says she still doesn't know what happened to her daughter and that she is innocent. I'm responsible for answering everyone in the world's questions about her, about what happened. I still don't know. What happened to Kaylee? I know what I'm afraid of. I know what eats at me at night. I know what eats at me day after day. Because I know what I lived through. The only person in this world that matters to me still is my daughter. But I'm still defending the fact that I didn't hurt her. I live it every single day. And no one can ever tell me I should just get over the fact that my daughter isn't here and I've been blamed for her being gone. Anthony also repeated claims that she suffered years of abuse by her father and her mother never knew. When I was 8 years old, my father started to come into my room at night. I was physically hurt, scared because I was physically hurt and I can't tell mommy what happened. She'll get mad at me. That's what I was told. George Anthony has denied all allegations of abuse. I want to bring in Casey Jordan. She's a criminologist, behavior analyst, and attorney. It's so great to have you here on this topic. I mean, why is she speaking out now, do you suppose?
I would love to know that because, Elizabeth, I covered this trial for 16 hours a day back in 2011, and I saw every bit of it. And everybody wanted her to take the stand and tell her side of the story 11, 12 years ago, and it never happened. So why do it now? I think the conclusion I've come to, and most viewers will come to, is it's all about the money. I mean, there is nothing to keep her. Some laws only apply to people who've been convicted of murder, convicted of heinous crimes. But since she was found not guilty, there is nothing to stop her from making money from this documentary. And if you're truly cynical, you might think it's taken this long for her to get her acting skills up to par.
Funny.
Because when I even watch that clip right now, I see some Academy Award winning acting.
Oh, yes.
In terms of her denial and her refusal to answer the specific questions. And again, accusing her father of sexual abuse is kind of an easy way out.
Right. Let's elaborate a little bit on that. There is a piece of sound that I want to get your reaction to where she maintains her innocence. Here she is, and I'm curious as to your reaction. The only person in this world that matters to me still is my daughter. But I'm still defending the fact that I didn't hurt her. I live it every single day. And no one can ever tell me I should just get over the fact that my daughter isn't here and I've been blamed for her.
This is where she needs to be kicked in the mouth. Who told you need to get over the death of Kaylee? I don't believe no person told you that. The only person that would have said that to you, Casey Anthony, is another baby killer. I don't believe you have enough friendships that somebody in that group would say, well, just get over it, move on. No, that's your alter ego talking. Split personality is talking. Because right here you're acting, so it's one of your stupid personalities that's telling you to say that. I do not believe a sane human being said that to you. Just get over it. Like I said, the only person that would say that to you is another person that thinks and acts like you. Thank you all for joining me. This is HLN.
Her being gone. Casey, your take on that?
Okay, we want to look at her words right after her daughter disappeared, and they don't match what you're hearing right now. She was partying, she was out all night, she was, fighting with her mother, blaming Zanny the nanny, making up stuff. I mean, the truth and Casey Anthony are strangers. So I
She's
think
very
it's just more of
dangerous.
the same. 12 years later, she wants a platform. I personally am not going to watch the documentary because I don't want to give it to her. But I don't believe she really misses her daughter, and I do believe that she knows what happened to her.
Yes, she does.
You know, when we talk about the fact, and I remember it obviously very well too. I was in local news, and it was really all we could talk about on a national level when we wouldn't weave in national coverage. This may be a redemption tour for her, but do you think with people who may not live through it, is she going to win them over?
There could be some, but I don't think anyone who watched the trial like you and I did is going to be convinced. Listen, I'm all about redemption. I'm all about rehabilitation. She was found not guilty. There is nothing we can do to hold her responsible if we believe she is responsible. So we can hope that she, in her heart, the redemption is between Casey Anthony and her own conscience. And we can all hope and pray for that. I would love to see that. But that comes through the telling of truth, the reconciliation with truth. And I don't think this documentary is going to accomplish that at all.
Right. And you would hope that, we hear from other family members and their take on this. Thank you so much, Casey.
All right, everybody. You hear this lady saying, hope we hear from other relatives. Well, will the parents want to speak? Go back into the lion's den talking about their wayward daughter, their baby-killing daughter? I wouldn't want to say anything. And when I watch her in this clip walk out of the jail with Baez, hot pink t-shirt on, jeans and tennis shoes, I always ask myself when I watched it that night, where in the hell is she going? Because we're on the same Eastern Standard Time, Florida and Tennessee. I was asking myself, where is she going? There's no way her parents are going to let her sleep in their house after everything she said about them in the trial. So where did she sleep that night? It's been a long time since I watched the trial and afterwards what they said she was doing and where she was staying. But this Mr. McKenna, to me, you're a sick puppy because I wouldn't be helping her and I wouldn't have helped her then. And one would wonder if you're just a sick old man wanting to put your hand up under the skirt of a young girl. And I won't doubt that you two have probably done some things and that's why she still in cahoots with you, because she knew she didn't have any support. She didn't have anybody. I think Baez may have helped her out a little bit after getting out of jail, but you somehow stepped in at some point. What did you gain by helping her and now having a investigative agency and using her to help out? Because she can't do anything anywhere else. Nobody's going to want to hire a baby killer. Not saying that she can't get support, because you always got gullible people willing to enable killers, people who exact felonious behaviors and crimes, but she draws too much attention and it would be too much for anybody to have hired her or hire her now. So I'm wondering, did she have an affair with McKenna? Did she have an affair with Baez? Because we've heard in so many cases of people hiring attorneys, defense lawyers, divorce lawyers. What do they say about the women? The first person they have sex with is the divorce lawyer. Although this wasn't a divorce. It was a divorce of a mother and a daughter. She killed her kid. But did Baez do anything kinky with her afterwards? I'm wondering. And also, Mr. McKenna, did you do anything sexual with her or continual sexual relationship with Casey Anthony? I'm just curious. Yeah, I thought she stayed with Baez. That's why I said, did something sexual go on? Because a man is a man, no matter if he is an attorney, an investigator, the garbage man, or the baker, butcher. He's a man before he's anything. She was a young woman, possibly attractive to them in their eyes. I won't be surprised if they made moves on her and she reciprocated. That's the sad information. I'll play my last content pertaining to Casey Anthony. Leilani Simon, is there a comparison of the two? copycat killer. Has she ever heard of Casey Anthony, Leilani Simon? Court TV has decided to do a rendering pertaining to the comparison of Quentin Simon's case to the Casey Anthony case. This was uploaded 4 days ago. Thank you all so much for joining me, following the content. This should be interesting.
Anthony case, 2008. So years ago, beautiful little girl reported missing. The mother says, I don't know what happened, not involved. The grandmother, again, outspoken grandparent, calls about a month later and says, listen, this child's been missing. We don't know where she is. The mother says she doesn't know where she is. Mother finally admitted she was involved. Law enforcement, we have a missing child. Mother was approximately a month later eventually charged with a crime. We know she went to trial. She was not convicted. But some of these initial facts, I think, are reminiscent of that. So let me start with you, Wendy Patrick, and ask, do you see any similarities to that case? Does it make you think of the Casey Anthony? And we know the verdict in the Casey Anthony case was not guilty at the end of the day.
I think there are some significant distinctions from the Casey Anthony case, and I think part of what led to that acquittal, at least by virtue of the jurors that were willing to talk, and really what we know about the cases we followed it through, is Casey Anthony was a very different individual personally than this apparent suspect from what we know thus far, and especially after we've just heard from Janae, in terms of some of the family dynamics that were involved, as well as maybe some personal issues. But I'll tell you what's similar, Ashley, is this is the kind of thing that we see frequently. I wish I could say Casey Anthony is the only case that I thought of when I heard about this arrest. But there are often cases where parents, I don't want to say are covering for children, but find it hard to believe that their own flesh and blood are capable of committing some of these heinous crimes. So they don't look where they think they should look, or they give everyone the reasonable, they kind of exercise their own version of reasonable doubt, if you will. Or as the mother in this case, a part of me wanted to believe, even though it sure seemed like she did it, that she didn't. So that's why we often see grandparents stepping in, taking custody of kids to protect them from their own sons and daughters.
Yeah, it is their son and daughter, but let's listen together, because there's some different parts of the Casey Anthony that I want to listen to, and then Nima and Julia, have you both weigh in. I want to listen first to some of the opening statement by the state saying that the mother had a story, but she lied at the beginning about what happened to her child.
In a pattern that is repeated throughout this case, when Casey Anthony's lie can no longer stand, when she can't get out of the corner that she has painted herself into, when her back is up against the wall, and when the stakes increase, what does Casey Anthony do? What she did. Casey Anthony comes up with a new, a bigger, and a better lie.
She's shaking her head no.
Back against the wall, that Casey Anthony first says these words: Kaylee was kidnapped by the babysitter. The babysitter that nobody has ever seen, that nobody ever saw, that her parents didn't know, that her brother had never heard of.
All right, that's the first thing, Nima, that the mother in that case said, the Casey Anthony case. And then in this case, we have 47 days later, mother arrested. So is it human nature, in your experience, Nima, if someone does commit a crime, especially an egregious crime like this against their own child, that they tend to just lie immediately just to protect themselves?
Of course. People that are guilty, they lie. And Casey Anthony was actually convicted of those lies. Of course, just 4 misdemeanors, reduced to 2 on appeal. But, I mean, that's very similar to what we're seeing here, Leilani's lies. I mean, and that's not where the similarities end. There's that delayed report. We have Casey Anthony reportedly partying, and Leilani, there's reportedly videos of her throwing back shots with her mom, all of this time when her child is missing and presumed dead. So
A lot of similarities, and I think the defenses are going to be the same as well. We already see them coming out in the Simon case. Obviously, Casey Anthony said that Kaylee drowned, and her father, who sexually abused her, was involved in the cover-up. And we're seeing that accidental drowning defense here and finger pointing. So I agree with you, Ashley, and the folks at Court TV. A lot of similarities between the two cases, and I think the defenses are going to be similar as well.
Yeah, and that's what, 14 years ago, if I did my math right, that the Casey Anthony case happened. All right, Julia, let's listen together. There was one other piece of Casey Anthony I wanted to listen to, and that is the 911 call made by the grandmother when she finally reached out to law enforcement to say, I think we have a problem. Let's listen.
Emergency. I found out my granddaughter has been sick and she has been missing for a month. Her right highway admitted that she's been missing. I need to find her. There's something wrong. I found my daughter's car today and it smells like there's been a dead body in the damn car. Hey, what is the 3-year-old's name? Kaylee. Caylee. Anthony.
All right, Julia, final thoughts on listening to that and also all of the information you've gathered and about the Quentin case at this time.
There are certainly similarities. One I want to point out is the public response to the disappearance of Quentin Simon, how the demonstrators got involved and even set up shop in front of the house. We saw that throughout the investigation when it came to Casey Anthony. Also, those lies that Nima mentioned, where she initially said, Leilani Simon did, that it was her the father of her child, the biological father, Henry Bubba Moss, who police found 80 plus miles away, and he was clear. He had an alibi for that time period. So similar to how Casey Anthony directed police to a babysitter and directed people around her to the babysitter. Certainly some similarities, but also I think they may look more into Leilani Simon's life. I know from her Facebook page, she was posting about loving being a mom and wanting to spend time with her kids and looking for a house that was kid-friendly and wanted moms who could be friends with her. So there may be some differences that she'll be able to use, especially since she's the one who made the 911 call reporting her child missing versus someone else having to report little Kaylee Anthony missing.
And again, just a reminder to our viewers that Casey Anthony was found not guilty of the felonies. There were those misdemeanor charges that Nima mentioned. But in any event, thank you so much to Julia Janae for joining us on all the updates out of Savannah, Georgia on the Clinton case, Simon case.
All right, everybody. Court TV is the source. That's my last piece of information I'm going to play pertaining to Casey Anthony. I think most of us who are sane and lucid know that Casey Anthony is a liar. She has used and abused her family as bait in the trial. And now, once again, by doing this Peacock series, and it's disrespectful to the dead and it's disrespectful to her parents. Most people who lie, they just do it over and over and over again, saying the same thing, hoping that it would appease to some gullible person. And it works for some because it worked for 12 members of a jury. So if I say it enough, say it loud enough, you'll believe it. But they know they're lying. They know they're lying. Thank you so much, everybody. Yes, hit that like button. They know they're lying, but you don't know. And that's what they're hoping. It's the you will listen and say to yourself, well, maybe she's telling the truth. But the thing that's so interesting about this story is, where is the appease to find the killer if indeed you didn't kill your kid? Oh, that's right. George did it. He dumped the baby. So why isn't George locked up? Bingo card. Checkmate. George killed the kid, or George found the kid, which however you want to word it, whatever version you want to come up with, every 12 years. Well, why is he not being investigated for dumping a body? I'll wait. Why isn't your father being investigated for dumping a body? The state of Florida is not about to bring any charges against Mr. Anthony because they know better. They're the same ones that brought charges against you. And sadly, 12 members of a jury found you innocent. You were found guilty on lying charges. So let's talk about that. If you all can find her guilty on lying, you come up with 4 charges. She's only found guilty of 2 on appeal. Then what do you think happened to the kid? That's what makes no sense. You found her guilty for lying about what? You don't think the lies didn't lead to the fact that she had killed the kid? So somewhere in this story you say, well, I believe she lied about the baby and the circumstances of having the kid, but they ain't showed us enough proof that she killed her kid. That's basically what you're saying. And that's why you found her innocent. You knew she lied to the police, lied about having access to the child, lied about Zanny the nanny, lied about these other things, but the state didn't show she killed her kid. That's what's so interesting about the 12 members of the jury. You will charge her with lying, but yet say, well, the state didn't prove she killed the kid. So why didn't you all wonder about George then? Him dumping this kid. Then how did the kid get out there? So where's the search for the killer? Because the killer is free. Ding. These people did not analyze this properly. You're going to find somebody guilty for lying about a child, but you don't think they're the same person that killed the kid and dumped the kid right around the corner from their own house. How in the world could you not put the two together? That's what was so baffling about that trial. And everything ugly was pointed towards her father. An affair he had, they brought that out, which was so disgusting. Everything was pointing negatively to the father as the culprit. But yet, afterwards, no search for a so-called killer. Just she moved on. No relationship with the parents anymore in the story. The mother must have been distraught, trying to believe her daughter. Accusations coming out in trial about her husband allegedly touching the kid, touching her, brother touching her, and then the husband sleeping around with another woman. It didn't get no worse. It just got ridiculous. But this is what happens. Your sins come out because of other sins. And that's what happened with George. He had been playing footsies with another woman. And here comes his sins coming out in a court, open court, due to trying to get justice for a baby girl, which was his granddaughter. You see what is done in the dark come to the light. But sadly, all of that nasty stuff coming out in court set a killer free. Yes, I mentioned that earlier. The utility worker being duped into it as well. Baez, you were relentless in trying to get Casey off, and it worked. That's the sick part of the story. Did all the finger pointing at everybody in the house, besides the mother, to find that interesting. Utility worker who didn't know these people from a can of paint, didn't know Casey, the baby, George, the mother, nobody. You pointed the finger at him, George, the butcher, the baker, but not the mother who was vanished, gone, disappeared, made up lies, made up stories about nannies and this and that, people stealing, theft, bad checks, and nobody could see she was the culprit in the death of baby Kaylee. What a tragic story. Now we have the comparison of Simon case, Anthony case. Casey never called 911. Her mother did. Leilani calls. But most of us think she wouldn't have called had Dinah McCarter, the babysitter, had not have rushed over there to try to help find Quentin Simon. How is that trial going to fare in the state of Georgia? I pray 12 members won't be gullible, such as those jury members in Florida. They will see through the lies of her trying to blame Bubba Moss. He lived far away, has an alibi, wasn't the babysitter, wasn't the child wandered off, nor a stranger walked into the house and stole the baby out of the house. You see, when they start fishing is what I call it. Only a crazy person can't see the fishing attempts. You've named 4 different versions of what happened to Quentin Simon. So I pray when all that information comes out in the court, the evidence they have against Leilani Simon, 12 members will see she is the culprit. Malice murder. Find a motive if they can, but naturally may not even find a motive. They'll probably try to introduce one. It'll be up to those people to decide if they believe it or not. But the evidence that you put the child in the dumpster and that it was malice murder, we pray the 12 will say yay. And if it does meet the criteria for the death penalty, to put her to death. That is my personal opinion. Because she's vile and she's disgusting. And just like Casey Anthony was running around the city, hooping it up and partying while the child was missing, pictures of her dancing on tables and this and that on stage, whatever. Here you have this bimbo drinking it up with her mother on Tybee Island while her child is missing. Well, dead rather. Knowing the child was dead because she killed the child. Who cares about drinking in public? I can see drinking behind closed doors, but not in public. Being loud in a public restaurant, for what reason? Knowing somebody's going to get wind of you being there. And for those YouTubers who just could not let go of the story, followed them over there. You see, you can't do anything. You leave a blueprint wherever you go. And when you become a sensational story, there will be people that will follow you around. It's not to say that it's right, but it is what it is. And they will record your movements. That is what happened on Tybee Island with Leilani Simon and her mother and their so-called friends. But the comparison is that you have 2 pathological liars. Casey Anthony is now almost 40 years old and still lying. Leilani is 22 and a liar. And 9 times out of 10, whether she is found guilty, not guilty, she will still be a pathological liar like Casey Anthony. That is the one common denominator of both bio donors. Both are liars. Both don't care about their children. Both did what they wanted to do up until the child's death. And I do believe both killed their child. Hands down. Hands down. Malice murder, Kaylee Anthony. Malice murder, Quentin Simon. Checked out bio donors. Didn't want to be a mother anymore to that specific child. And if you can kill one, you can definitely kill your other 2. I pray they find Leilani Simon guilty. As most of you know, she's in protective custody down there in the Chatham County Detention Center. Different versions of why she's there. I'm not listening to any of that BS because I don't care about why she's in protective custody. I just want her to be able to go to court successfully and stand trial for the murder of Quentin Simon. I'm not concerned about any type of problem she has in there, any type of problem she acquires. That's her damn business. Because had she done right by her child, she would have never been in there in the first place. And also by her other children. Being in that Chatham County jail is a choice. She chose to be in there, so that's where the hell she deserves to be. And frankly, she deserves to be pushed down in mud, sinking sand, quicksand. She's disgusting, just like Casey Anthony. Will she get a jailhouse interview? I don't know. We'll wait and see. What else shenanigans will come about between she and her mother and brothers and stepdaddies? I don't know, but they're all clowns. And this is what happens when you have street people rearing kids, street people stepping in to allegedly help kids, such as Billy Joe and the husband. They're all street people. Stay woke. Don't ever get it twisted because somebody's living in a nice house, such as Casey stayed with her parents. They had a decent house. Leilani stayed in a house that looked decent. The mindset is bottom feeders. I don't think George and the wife are like BJ and her husband, but BJ is sick, so the daughter is sick. Just like the son's sick. He's in prison for murder. The Anthony's daughter is sick, but yet she's free now. But sick people rear children. That's why the children end up missing. That's why the children end up abused. That's why the children end up dead. Street people. So it doesn't matter if they have a nice home, nice life. They live with parents in a nice house. That has nothing to do with the mindset. Because Casey Anthony didn't have to end up killing her kid. She could have easily asked her parents to raise the child, and I do believe they would have raised the child. Because I believe she was going and coming and doing what she wanted anyway when the kid was living. So there was no need to kill the baby. But I know why she killed the kid, as I said before in this live stream. She killed the kid so she could have a free place to live without the obligation of the baby in the same house. Leilani, she just didn't give two fucks. I'm mad at my mama. She's trying to put me out. She's putting me on child support, me and Danny. I'll show her. I'll do her one better. I'm going to up her one. I'll kill this kid. I'll show her. You don't cross me. Now what you're going to do, the baby's missing. Whether he was BJ's favorite or not is irrelevant. Because how could he be her favorite when you go file for custody of him and the other child knowing you lived out of town working? So that's hypocritical and it's fraud. Leilani wanted to show up her mother, and she did. And she also knew that the woman would never put her out having a missing child. I do believe those are the reasonings. Child support, the eviction notice, revenge, and empathy from Billy Joe Howe. So you don't know people. And I was watching a short clip tonight on A&E, last night rather, about an Amish man who killed his wife. I would like to bring that content to the network because it needs to be analyzed by the Queen. You see, it doesn't matter religion, background, you don't know people. And the scary part about murder is that people are sleeping with the enemy. The children are reared by the enemy, and they don't have no idea that they're going to be killed by the enemy. And in this short clip, you learn how devious this husband was by having affairs on his wife with English women, which means regular folk, and playing the doting Amish father, but he was a sinner, and he was a liar, and he was deceitful. And he planned the death of his wife with an older woman who didn't look like nothing. Just a regular old hag who was stupid enough to conspire to kill this man's wife who had done nothing to her, and she was also married. I'd like to bring that story to the network because it is a very interesting story please check A&E for that said information. But the point is, you don't know people. And people are murdered every day by people who they think care for them and love them. And little do they know that the little problems that they're having, or problems they don't even know they have, is getting ready to end their demise. How would a child know her mother is going to kill her? How would a wife know her husband is going to kill her? How would a husband know his wife? It's all the same. Vice versa. How will you know that someone is plotting your death? Now, naturally, if they tell you, I hate you, I wish you were dead, then you should believe them and run like hell. Mentally, physically abused, run like hell. Notoriously cheating, run like hell. Don't wait for the bang. Because I don't believe many people think that a cheater would lead to a murderer. And there have been a lot of people who have cheated on their spouses' relationships, but they did not kill that person. So what would lead a person to murder their own spouse? And this young couple had 5 children, which is very sinister, that a man would plot to kill a nice young lady. Very kind things were said about this young lady, a very nice woman. Why would you kill the mother of your children? Because that means you're going to be alone raising 5 children. And if you think this older woman was going to step up and raise those kids, how was she going to do that in an Amish life? Unless you planned on leaving the Amish lifestyle. That's all he had to do. When he realized he had a penchant for sex with different women, he should have checked out and went and lived as a regular citizen and took care of his children. He's trying to appease to the Amish life, don't want to be shunned by them, but he didn't think this plan through in killing his wife. In the end, he got 15 years to life for conspiracy, and the older woman, his friend, got 23 years to life for the murder of his wife. You have no idea who you're talking to. You don't know people. And that's the sad thing about this life. The sad thing about true crime is there's a story every day about foolishness and mayhem and death. And the YouTube queue is filled with non-stop stories from Dateline, 48 Hours, Oxygen, A&E, Court TV, Law and Crime, so on and so forth, from evildoers. That's why you have to be aware of the people and the company that you keep and not think you could not be a victim. Anybody can be a victim of a violent crime. If you need verification for any of the information that I have brought to you, it is in the YouTube queue and also on my community page. Every story that I have mentioned in this live stream. Thank you so much for following the content. Welcome all new subscribers and viewers. 1,500 plus new subscribers. God is good. Please check out The Queen once again in Dolly Parton's new movie with Willie Nelson, Jimmy Fallon, Billy Ray Cyrus, Miley Cyrus, and a host of others. I am an extra in this movie that is now playing on NBC and Peacock. You will see the Queen in the opening scenes of the casino scene. Thank you so much for your support and kind words. If you'd like to donate to this great network, $Beganji, 129 Cash App. All stickers and chats are welcome during my lives. I will bring you more content pertaining to the Idaho 4, possibly later on in the day. We're going to chop up once again the new roommate and this flip-flopping of target, non-target. What's this intended for? The 6th roommate. Is this a case of mistaken identity? Somebody came to the house looking for somebody else who used to live there or just moved in. going to move in. Who is the killer? Where is he at? In Idaho, out of state, town over, young, old? What was the motive? And are the remaining 3 lives in danger? Checkmate. See, you don't know. Please go to my community board for the said information and the updates pertaining to the students at the University of Idaho. Prayers to the family for answers, justice for their children. Prayers for the students, the friends, the faculty, the staff, and the community, because they need our prayers. If you see something, say something. Be a part of the solution, not the problem. Mind the children. Make that phone call. You may just save a life. Happy holidays to the viewing audience. Be careful when shopping. Always have your keys ready before you go to your car. Do not leave anything on the seats, floorboards. Put everything in your trunk. Wear a crossover bag when shopping. Always get a receipt. Beware of people bumping you in the store, outside. Don't walk over to anybody's car or van to look at any type of merchandise, hot items. Preserve your life. Do not put boxes outside the garbage can or the dumpster. Ask not to let people know what you have purchased, and do not put your purchases on social media. And please watch all your doors and windows while entertaining guests, because that is a good time for people to just walk in your house if they see company walking in and out during the holiday season. Thank you so much for your time. Please be safe. Have a happy weekend. Happy holidays once again to everybody in the viewing audience. This is Everyday Shenanigans. Thank you all so much.